Hello there, everybody. I wanted to do a short video welcome message about the assignment that you've got to do this semester, the paper on the magnificent Ambersons. I want to just walk through a few things that I want to make sure that you're going to get from this. The first thing I want to mention is you got to get the book. There's no substitute for this book. Within the assignment that I've now opened up for you are various links for free versions of the book. So you're welcome to download a PDF for the book. It's free. You can read it on your phone or on a tablet or on your computer, whatever. So there are free versions out there. You can also find it at most, like Barnes and Noble, I believe, has it in stock. Someplace you can order it off of Amazon. It's not expensive. That's why I don't have it in the bookstore or anything like that. Here is a one copy of it. Looks like it's backwards on my screen because that's the way this works. But this is one copy. This is from Barnes and Noble Classics. Dover has a version of it in hardcover, or excuse me, paperbacks. There are a lot of different versions out there. So that's the first thing you got to do is secure the book. Second thing I want to make sure you do is look at the assignment that I've posted. It's a Word document. Look at that assignment that I've posted there for you. This is not a book report. This is not just telling me what happens from one chapter to the next. That is not what this is. Mainly because I know the story. I don't need you to tell me the story. What I'm trying to do is get you to look at this assignment and I'd say print it out and keep it with you whenever you're reading the book. I know this is going to be a few weeks before you start doing this, but I want to get this up and running now. So print out the assignment. In reading the assignment, you'll see that there's some basic stuff in there about Booth Tarkington. This book was written in 1919 or published in 1919, and it got a lot of love when it came out. Very few people read it now, but got a lot of love when it came out. Won the Pulitzer Prize for Best Fiction that year. So it was a big deal when it came out, and he was a big deal in terms of being an author. So it's not read a whole lot now, but it should be because it's the best example I can find of what I'm trying to get you to think about at this point in the class. And what I want you to be able to think about is the transition in America from North America, but particularly in United States, from an agrarian society of landed gentry and wealth based on land to a society much more based on factories and transformation from a landscape of rolling farms and that sort of landscape to large cities with lots of different people and lots of different people from lots of different places moving in and transforming this country. I've never found another book that quite captures this dramatic transformation from the late 1800s, from really the post-Civil War era into the early 1900s. This book captures a lot of that. Major Amberson, who made his fortune, built his mansion. You have Amberson Addition, which was a subdivision of the city of Central City, I think it's called. Really, it's a stand-in for Indianapolis. And the fate of this family as they go through changes, as the world around them changes, and they can't really adjust to that. And it's also about the Morgan family and their rise to prominence by investing in technological change that is going to dramatically change this country. So these are the kind of things I want you to get out of this. Not a story about what happens next and that sort of thing, but about the um, transformation of this country from one world of an agrarian, I don't know how to put it, an agricultural based small town with its own elite that people would recognize in the town. And it goes through this transformation as the Ambersons basically become, well, you'll see when you read the book what happens to them as opposed to the Morgans and some other families. So that's what I want you to get out of this. Not so much this idea of what happens next, though I do want you to make sure you engage with the ending. That I've kind of emphasized in the assignment as well, because there's some real ironic aspects of that I want to make sure you get. Some other things about the book that I want to make sure I say, which I would have said in class if we were in a classroom environment. This is written, as I've said, in 1919. There are some phrasing in there that is somewhat racist. Just be aware of that, and don't lambaste the author for that in your paper that you write up, simply because I know it's there. I'm telling you some is there. Not a lot for that time period, actually not a lot, but enough so that I want to warn you that it's there. And it's from its time, and that wouldn't be used now. But that's not the point. This is a book about the transformation of the landscape for me, and the interaction of American culture and American families as they go through this, two different families as they go through these transformations. And so, yes, there's some language in there that wouldn't be acceptable today, and just be aware of that. Like I said, it's not a lot, but it's enough so that I want you to be aware of it, and don't get mad at me, don't get mad at the author. It's just a book written in 1919, and there were phrases that were used that are uncomfortable. Your paper is 4 pages, somewhere in that neighborhood. It says 4 to 5. I usually get about 4. If you're under that much, that's probably a problem. In terms of the assignment, what you're going to look at are a whole lot of kind of questions that are in there that you can address. Now, if we were in a face-to-face class, someone would ask me, and I'll probably do a Teams meeting later in case there's some questions about this that we can address. But do you have to address every little point that I've made in the assignment? The answer is no, but that's a guide. Those questions are a guide to what I want you to think about. Now, some of you will address pretty much everything. Some of you won't. Some things might be more of interest in those questions that I posed in the assignment than others. So just feel free, but that's a guide to make sure that you're not just giving me a blow-by-blow account of what happens when so-and-so leaves the family, so-and-so dies. I know the sequencing of the book. What I want you to look for is something deeper. The reason I do this as well is if you were teaching in a high school class and were looking for a social studies book, you could use this. With the caveat that they realize that there's some phrasing in there that might be problematic occasionally. But if you've covered your bases there, you can possibly use this. There's no bad language. There's no sex scenes or anything like that. It's all very above board and that kind of. So my point is, if you're teaching in a high school class, you might could assign this. So, it's a little bit long, but it reads really quick. I've been through this probably a dozen times. It reads really quick, and it's not hard writing. It's pretty linear narrative. There's no flashbacky kind of stuff. This is all pretty linear. It's a little bit long at some places, but I wanted to give you a heads up as to what I'm looking for The assignment also says it needs to be submitted through Turnitin, which I've opened up now for you. A Turnitin assignment. You'll just submit it there. I'm not always sure how that works on your end, but I know it works. I've seen this done many times. And so make sure you don't borrow heavily from another source. This is meant to be you, and so there's no real right or wrong necessarily. This is more of an interpretive piece, but I'll know if you read it or not. That becomes pretty clear. You'd be surprised how easy that is. And don't borrow. This is, like I said, Turnitin so it'll check it, but even before, I would always know that there's phrases or sentences or paragraphs that obviously you had not written that I couldn't write, that you basically borrowed from somewhere. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just use your own words, and it. I'm not taking off for grammar too much, or things like that. This isn't an English paper. This is a impressionistic piece of a book that you're reading that talks about the transformation of America at a critical time from the late 1800s into the early 1900s. So let me give you one other thing. The main character, George Amberson Minifer, Georgie, is a bit of a jerk. So just be aware of that. You don't need to tell me over and over again what a jerk he can be. I realize that. He goes through his own transformation. So I was reading it again today and just reminding of his own transformation. But he starts out as a pretty awful character. And I've added in a little thing, his ideal or his philosophy. I was reading it again today and just thinking about this aspect of the book, his philosophy of being rather than doing, his ideal of being rather than doing. I think that's something you might want to address. I didn't used to put that in the assignment, but I was looking at it again today and thinking, yeah, that could be something that you might want to glean or take out of the book. So in terms of American culture and how we're now a culture that emphasizes doing rather than being. So anyway, just some thoughts, just something I put into the assignment as a trigger in case you want to address Georgie Minifer's philosophy and how it is emblematic of America. That's the thing. It's not just his personal. It's also, I think, what Tarkin is trying to do is get you to think about America, think about our culture, our landscape, not just this family, but something much broader. So, a few weeks from now, I'll probably do a Teams meeting. If you have questions, you can come in and talk, ask me some specific questions as we get closer to the assignment due date, which isn't until October, so it's a good ways off. But I just want to go ahead and post this up so that you'd have an explanation of what you're trying to look at, because some of you are going to jump on this, and I applaud that. Some of you, maybe not so much, but some of you, I want you to be able to jump on this if you've got other stuff that you have to do as we go forward, trying to get our classes up and running as smoothly as possible. So, and also if you have any questions about any of this, just email me. I'll be happy to address it, but we'll have something eventually to address any concerns you might have as we get closer, maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the paper's due, somewhere in that time period. All right. Get yourself a copy of the book, print out the assignment, and let's get started. Thanks a bunch.